biggest thing you need to do before starting your build is to make a plan. The worst thing you can do is buy a car, buy a bunch of parts, go in, start building it. I'm sure many of you have been here that have tried it yourselves. Start building it and then you realize, oh, I don't want this part, I don't need this part, and you go off trying to sell them or trade them, whatever it is. It ends up costing you a lot more money and you waste a lot of time. So the biggest thing is start with a plan. That really starts with, what are you going to do with it? What's the purpose? You need to decide, is this a drift car? Is it a race car? Is it a daily driver, show car, off-road truck? Whatever it is, figure out that purpose, because that's going to affect your budget. It's going to affect what chassis you choose, what parts you put onto it, and really everything else. And one of the things I would say is don't try to make like an all-around vehicle. It can be done, but it really doesn't work all that well. I've tried making a show car slash drift car slash race car slash daily, and it ends up not working well in one of those aspects. Now, trying to build a full-on race car or full-on show car, don't try to combine them. So first, pick your use. This is the least fun part of the build process, in my opinion. Gotta pick your budget. We're not all extremely rich and have unlimited money, even though we wish we were, but you really need to dial in like how much money you're gonna spend on this, including your car, and be realistic with it. I would even go as far as getting some quotes on certain things if you're not doing them yourselves, like a paint job or wrap job, whatever it is, or building the motor, depending on what you're doing, or sound system, maybe you can't do that yourself. Get those big numbers and put them down. Figure out how much money you can spend, how much money you're willing to spend on it, because that's really going to affect a lot of the choices you make. And you may find that you can build the car you want for fairly cheap. You're just not going to be able to buy those crazy wheels you want to do, or whatever it is. Get your purpose down, get your budget. Next, choose your chassis. You're really, depending on what your budget is and what you're going to use it for, that's really going to narrow down what car you're choosing. That's why we decide on those other things first. For example, let's say we're building a bagged show car, right? So we know that we're obviously not going to pick a truck. We probably want to pick something that has air suspension available for it, and we know we're going to spend X amount of money. So now we can go and start researching cars that are going to have cool body kits available and air suspension available, maybe have a common wheel size, so like 5 on 114.3, so we can find lots of wheel options for it and not have to spend a bunch of money there. But whatever it is, pick your chassis and then we'll move forward from there. All right, guys, so we have our budget, we know what we're using the car for, we've picked our chassis. What the heck do we do next? A lot of people may go different routes, but I really think the best thing to do here, if you really want to come out with a nice build and not go crazy over it, figure out your theme for it. So this includes the colors you're gonna put on it, if you're gonna do paint or wrap, if you're going, blacked out, mobbed out style, or if you're going crazy bright colors, going for a clean effect, going for a wild, maybe a OEM plus style, whatever it is, figure out that theme, work on some different colors. I'm someone who, I like kind of going on Google, just researching things, maybe messing around with Photoshop if you're able to, and kind of play with colors on the car, just take the hue and saturation slider and go nuts with it. But figure out what you're gonna do, because that's gonna affect what parts you're gonna buy. So let's say you're doing the Haugen Racing yellow, red, and blue, right? So we're gonna look for suspension we want to be blue, we're gonna look for parts that come in blue to save money. Otherwise you can powder coat and paint them, but generally a lot of companies have similar parts and they have them in their colorways, and so you can just choose the color that you like. Once you pick your theme and colorway, that's going to affect kind of where you go with the parts. The next thing we're going to do is do the overall design. If you're artistically inclined, you can maybe draw it or paint it. You can maybe get a render done, or if you know how to use Photoshop, make your own render. It doesn't need to be something that is, you can post up on Instagram and get a bunch of likes, but it is nice to have something kind of planned out that you can look at. I built a lot of cars without doing that, but in the past few builds, I think a render is really good. Especially if you have other people working on it with you, you can have that printed out and actually like tape it on the dash or on the outside of the vehicle, on the hood or something like that. And everyone that's helping you and just for yourself, you can kind of see, hey, this is my final vision, helps keep you on track. So even as someone who really likes to just totally visualize it and not have a render, I do think it's still good to have something that you can kind of keep looking at, and it helps motivate you as well. So after we have that figured out, and during that process, we're gonna figure out what categories we are gonna customize. If it's every category, if you're going all wild, SEMA show car, that's totally cool, but let's just say we wanna have a cool daily driver, lowered pickup truck. All right, we're not gonna go crazy with the suspension, right? So we're just gonna do maybe some, drop springs or whatever it is. And then we want a nice sound system, so we're gonna add that category in and budget for that. but we're not going to go paint job on it. You know, we're going to buy the truck, or maybe we already have the truck and it's black and we're going to roll with that. That's fine. So figure out what categories you're going to touch and kind of start building the parts in those categories, and that'll help you build that budget and kind of figure out what the overall plan is. So alongside that, choose parts that work within your budget. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is spending all your money on one crazy area and not being able to touch these other areas because you ran out of budget. Or what a lot of us do is we do that, we dive in, and then it takes us years to build because of whether it's how long things take to make or build, or saving up money for it. So that's why it's really good to put that plan together, work it a couple of times, you know, kind of adjust things. Let's say you work the plan and you have a bunch of money on wheels, but you're kind of missing something over here. Maybe you look for a different wheel option. Look for used wheels, whatever it is, so that you can kind of hit every category where you need to, depending on what your plan is. So I'd work that plan over, look through it, get quotes on certain things, you know, whether it's paint job or if you need fab work done, figure out what you're going to do yourself. And depending on what your day looks like, if you're like most people, you have a day job and maybe you don't have a whole lot of time to put into this car. So you need to have people or professionals execute certain categories for you. That's totally cool. It doesn't mean that you didn't build the car. It's kind of funny. A lot of people, maybe not as much anymore, but I remember back in the day, people would be like, oh, if you didn't do every single thing on your car, you didn't build it yourself. I kind of relate it to like it's building a house. Like you're the architect. You designed it, but you're not necessarily the best person at putting up the foundation and the actual structure. So you're gonna bring in a professional for that. That's totally normal and cool, and we do that all the time, even at Haugen Racing. We don't do every single thing ourselves. We come out with the plan and the design and then pick which categories maybe we're the best at and want to do, and then bring in partners and professionals for the other ones. So something to think about. That's gonna affect your budget and your kind of overall plan. The next thing I would do is acquire the car if you haven't already. So if this is a car that you're planning to build for, totally cool. But if you need to get the car, now's the time. You got your plan, you got your budget put together. So get the car. From there, we're gonna figure out our timeline. If this is a total hobby thing and you don't really care about it, that's fine, but it's still nice to have a timeline put together so you can kind of follow it and know what order things need to happen in. So get the car, you got your budget, you got your overall theme and colorway done, work that timeline, figure out when things are gonna happen. So there's a certain order that things need to be done on builds depending on what the goal is. So for example, let's say we're building a drift car. A lot of you guys watching probably love drifting because you're on our channel. So let's say we're gonna build a drift car. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the fab work. We're not gonna paint the car before we do the fab work because we're gonna mess up the paint, right? That seems obvious. But there's a lot of things, even on a show car. Let's say we're doing a crazy sound system. We're not gonna start building out our interior and things like that until we've ran all the wiring, designed the sound system, because we're gonna design the interior around the sound system, or it's gonna get designed at the same time. So think about the order of how things go. Generally, you build the car first, like do all your fab, wiring, things like that, and then pull everything out and paint it. That's not always like an option, but generally that's like the best way to go. Paint is kind of last, wiring is one of the last things, but maybe before or after paint, depending if it's something that you can pull out, like a race harness. But really think about and plan how that goes. The worst thing that happens is you do something super sweet. Maybe you're doing a bagged car and you build out this sweet floor panel, and then it goes to the sound system shop and they have to chop everything up. That'd be the worst thing that could happen, right? So think about the plan, think about what order things need to go in. So now we have a plan, we got our chassis, we got our budget, we got everything worked out. Now's the time to order parts. If you wanna go balls to the wall and you have the money, you can go ahead and order everything right now, but most of us don't, and we're gonna work, our budget throughout the timeline. So order the parts that you need as you need them. Another big thing is think about big money parts and when you can kind of hold them off to, as well as parts that may take a long time to get. So if we go back to our JDM Hot Boy drift car, that body kit might take a year to get. So that might be something we need to order now, maybe even before we've acquired the chassis. Like we've decided on the chassis and we're still looking for it. We may even need to order that body kit way ahead of time so it comes in time. It sucks to, start going through this timeline, having stuff going, and then you're waiting 6 months for parts. So think about them, do some research on the parts, find a supplier for it. If you're looking for body kit and JDM stuff, hit up Mastermind North America. They're awesome, they get you everything you need, and they sell all the biggest brands, so they're good friends of ours, so check those guys out for JDM parts specifically. But yeah, think about what you want to do, get those parts ordered, and don't go crazy, order them all at the same time. It's not necessary. So really, it's time to build it now. You got everything, got parts coming in, got things lined up, so it's build time. So things are never gonna go according to plan, okay? That's just like, it's not gonna happen. For example, our Pro car, I started building that 3 years ago, believe it or not. And because, I mean, that was an absolute horror of a show, getting this thing done. But I had ordered like body kit parts and things that were gonna take like a year to get 3 years ago, and we still had stuff come up. That's probably a horrible example. We've had definitely better luck in other builds, but no, things will come up. Things won't go to plan. A lot of these guys in the automotive community, unfortunately, don't stick to their timelines. Come on guys, let's step it up, do a little better at that. Don't get too frustrated with it. Try to stick to your plan as best you can. Yes, things happen, you wanna make adjustments, you wanna throw in this extra part. It's totally cool. I mean, we are here to have fun, so don't go too crazy with it. But really, this whole guide that we've put together for you guys is just to kind of help and assist you. I really would think about, really put a plan together, figure out your timeline, still have fun with it, but don't stress out too much about it. But this should help you make it more fun. That's really the goal here, is to have fun with it and not go broke doing it. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, please. Really appreciate it.